Okay, so we're good to go.
Awesome. So yeah, once again, my name is Matthew Chin, and my co-presenter slash partner for this summer is Allie Landy, and we will be running through this presentation for you, just an introduction to the EIR program for you guys, the educators and teachers that we work with to send engineers into schools. So behind the scenes of the EIR program, which you're all part of, are some of our staff members. So the main person that you may have had contact with in the past or will see in most of your correspondence is Rebecca White in the middle. And as well, we have another main staff member, Erica Lee Garcia, on the left. And then myself, Matthew, and Allie are both co-op students from the University of Waterloo working with Engineers of Tomorrow during this summer term. So we are temporarily joining the staff team and kind of helping to get the program started for this year. Awesome. So what is Engineers of Tomorrow? Engineers of Tomorrow is a nationally incorporated non-for-profit organization, and we partner with engineering companies, professional associations, and educators to transform the engineering profession. We want to, our goal of kind of what we do is to bring more diversity to teach the ability to learn from failure, to innovate, and to solve the most important problems of the 21st century, and teach that to young people in the school system. We believe in the power of engineering outreach and that it will shape the future. That's why we do our world-class engineering outreach and why we inspire and instill capacity in others to do the same. By shaping the public's perception, mainly young people, we change its future. So just to give a little background of myself and Allie's stories and how engineering has impacted us, I'm going to start. And for myself, engineering has kind of always been the direction of where I've seen myself go. I've always been interested in STEM, in problem solving, and I found myself always coming at situations with a more logical problem solving thinking. When I was growing up, engineering was a big part of my household. I come from a line of engineers. Both my father and his father were and are engineers, and it was a big part of my growing up. When I was a younger child, my dad would do an activity with us, and it was called a take-apart activity, or take-apart lesson. It's basically where he would give us old used technology like a printer, a rotary phone, answering machine, things that are quite analog and had no use in the house anymore. And he would give us one of those, sit us down, usually in a big cardboard box, have us hand us a screwdriver, and get us to take it apart to learn and understand how it worked. So that really encouraged that interest in technology. Now, fast forward, I'm currently studying nanotechnology engineering, which can be kind of confusing, and the name sounds quite complicated, but is a very general study of engineering. And the only kind of specifics of it are that it's at a small scale. So very working on a very, very small scale, which is where nano comes from. And the reason I pursued this field of engineering was because I want to be able to help people with the technology and innovation that I personally or just in general the field develops. I want to improve the quality of life and notably do that within the healthcare system. So that is why I'm pursuing this field of engineering and why I love to why I'm loving to be a part of this company and share that passion with more young people and get them interested and excited to pursue engineering as a way to impact and change the world for the better.
So my story is a little bit different. So I don't actually have any engineers in my family. My dad is an elementary school principal, and he's always been very interested in STEM outreach and activities, and he would always use me and my siblings as his guinea pigs, running whatever activities he was thinking of running with his class or at his school. But it wasn't until grade 9 that I really became interested in engineering when I signed up for a design and technology class at my high school. And it was a class where you were building bridges and model airplanes and little CO2 cars. But it wasn't branded as an engineering class. So I didn't even know what engineering was. I was describing the course to my dad about all the projects we would build and how excited I was. And my dad said, "Oh, yes, I'd love to see you do something in engineering." And I just didn't even know what engineering was. So for the next 4 years, I obsessed about engineering, researching as much as I could about the profession and different university programs. And that's how I ended up at the University of Waterloo studying systems design engineering, which is much like nanotechnology, a very broad program where we're looking more at large scale systems and how they interact rather than focusing on one particular system. We look at a little bit of electrical and computer and software and mechanical, which is something that I'm very passionate in, seeing how all those connect. But growing up with an educator in the household, I'm definitely very passionate about kind of relating everything back to education and shaping the way young people see the world. That's a bit of our engineering stories. So, a good place to start when we start talking about engineering is what actually is an engineer. Some people don't really know. Like I said, I was in grade 9 and I had no idea what an engineer was. A lot of people you ask will have a certain idea of what an engineer is. So, in Canada, to become an engineer, you must first get an undergrad degree at an engineering program. This usually takes 4 to 5 years, and at that point, you can become an engineer in training and you receive your iron ring, which you wear on the pinky of your dominant hand. So if you're walking around, you might notice that. And with some of the EIRs that come into your school, you might notice that they're wearing an iron ring, and that would be why. And then to become a professional engineer, you must work for an additional 4 years in an engineering job, and then you can apply for your professional license. So that is the technical definition of an engineer. But what really is an engineer? It's more than just a problem solver. It's someone who helps to change the world, someone who wants to improve the lives of others, someone who uses imagination and creativity to turn ideas into reality, and so much more. And that's really what our program hopes to do. We hope to provide students with a more broad idea of what an engineer really is. And a big part of that is helping to break stereotypes. So, this here is a screen grab from Google when you search for engineer. So in the chat, you can let us know what are a couple of the things that you're seeing in all of these pictures, kind of the recurring themes.
Hmm. Yeah, we have one white men with hard hats. Mostly men, mostly
Hats,
men.
yeah, drawings and blueprints. Yeah, so when you look at this, you see that it doesn't look very diverse. It is, as people pointed out, mostly white men. They're all wearing hard hats, and most of them are looking at blueprints or design ideas. And when we think about what an engineer is, it's actually a lot more diverse than that. And you'll see many of the EIRs in our program don't fit into this kind of stereotypical mold of what people perceive an engineer to be.
Awesome. So now that we've kind of had a chance to overview the profession of engineering, we'll move into talking about what the EIR program, the Engineer in Residence program, is, and kind of your place as educators within it, and what you can expect, and kind of the logistics of our program. So the EIR program is an engineering outreach program, and it was originally designed, or it's an engineering outreach program, and that's hosted by Engineers of Tomorrow, this non-for-profit. But it was originally founded by PEO, or Professional Engineers of Ontario, and we've now taken it on, and Engineers of Tomorrow is the company developing and facilitating this program. Our EIR program pairs engineers with schools and classrooms, and these engineers will then go into
Yeah, Matthew, it seems that your audio is cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go. Okay, I can hear you again, I
Am I
think.
better?
Yep, that's better.
At what part did I cut out?
Just talking about getting into the classroom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So I don't know which part I exactly cut out it, but basically, yeah, the engineer in residence program is sending engineers into the classroom, and these are presentations that are extra and on top of curriculum that you may be doing within your classrooms with the students. It's not necessarily meant to be someone who can come in and do already planned curriculum for you, but add in kind of additional flavor, as you'd say, to it, and bring excitement and interest and different kind of engagement to students.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So what's the general goal of our EIR program? So the program aims to promote engineering and STEM as kind of the foundation, and that's by bringing a role model engineer into the classroom that can engage with the students with fun hands-on activities, and use inclusive messaging to engage all the students. We want to bring an engineer, a real life engineer, into the minds of students, because most kids, I know from myself, without the presence of an engineer in the family, I would only grow up seeing police come into school, firemen come into school, kind of the forefront professions that you see, but I never had an engineer in the school talking about what they do and how they're changing the world. And some of the examples of messaging that we encourage our engineers to bring is that that engineering is a diverse profession, that it doesn't have to be wearing a hard hat, looking at a blueprint, designing a bridge or a building as you'd think. But there are many places where engineering, the profession of engineering is working that you may not necessarily think of. It's for everyone. There's no mold that you have to fit to be in engineering. You can be a creative thinker, someone who likes to do more abstract thinking. It doesn't have to be necessarily someone that's logical and problem solving. You can use creativity to turn different ideas into imagination, or sorry, turn different ideas and your imagination into reality, and make a difference in this world. The kind of underlying and overall arching theme is we want to create a positive STEM experience for young people. We want to for them to leave the classroom with a new idea, a positive idea of how engineers function in the world. Awesome. So logistics and details for the engineering program, what you guys can expect, and what we would like you as teachers to think about as we go into the school year. We want you to define the expectations of the in-classroom work with your engineer, because as you'll find, and we like to stress that our program is very much dependent on your relationship with the engineer that you're matched with and the communication that happens between that pairing, because as much as we as staff and as facilitators of the program at Engineers of Tomorrow can do, it really relies on what you and the engineer you are matched with can figure out within your partnership and make work. So define some expectations with your engineer, what the goal of your once per month meeting will be, and that is a goal, that time commitment, that once per month is stressed, of course, dependent on your schedule and the engineer's schedule, but we would love to see that happen. And how you're going to come up with relevant content as a team. Ideally, we'd love the engineer to come up with content that adds to the curriculum that you're teaching at the time, and bring that extra programming, that extra interest into what you're teaching at the time. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out. And again, it's all about your communication with the engineer. Decide methods of communication and how often you want to communicate, whether that's email, whether that's phone, whether that's meeting in person. We want you as a pairing to communicate with each other and be aware of each other's needs and the plans of one another. The EIR should be generally making hands-on society-based programming, and you can view these on our website at that link, eir.ca/resources, and that will usually be more hands-on, something different that the students have not necessarily experienced in the classroom already. And then as well, please contact us if anything is going wrong. We will check in occasionally throughout the year, but again, can't stress this enough. It's all going to be communication between you and your engineer in residence that make or breaks the program. We really encourage this, and but if we can help with anything, please let us know, and we will respond to that and make something work.
So along these lines, obviously one of the number one questions we keep getting asked during this time is, what's the plan with COVID-19? A lot of our engineers are asking, well, what if schools are closed? What are we going to do? So on our end, we are working to develop plans for what the program might look like if school closures continue into next year and some of our activities need to be run virtually. We are hoping that you'll be able to stay connected with an engineer. We had quite a few that in the last couple months of the previous school year were able to stay involved with their class, running virtual coding activities and just staying connected with their class through video calls. So we're hoping to be able to adapt some of the things that have worked for our existing EIRs and implement that for what next year might look like. And we will be continuing to send out emails and keeping you updated as the situation develops. Obviously, no one's 100% sure what September is going to look like. I know in my household with the principal who's trying to figure out what everything might look like, it's definitely an evolving situation. So we will be keeping in touch as things progress. So now we're going to move into a couple of our most asked questions, then we'll give you a chance to ask any questions that you may have as well. So the first scenario we're going to talk about is communication issues. So you're excited to have your EIR program in the classroom, but you haven't heard from your engineer. and you're worried that your students won't get to experience the exciting opportunities and you won't get to take advantage of this program. So, what do you do? This is a pretty simple one here. You reach out to them. Communication is a two-way street. So if you're not hearing from your engineer, you can reach out to them. If you've tried this and they're still not responding or you're having trouble tracking them down, you can reach out to us. We're always here to help. We often have different communication methods. Maybe they said, oh, call me, but then something changed and emailing is actually the best way to go. So we can help you navigate that and get connected with your engineer.
Scenario number two are curriculum issues. Sometimes your EIR is doing a fantastic job at engaging the students and getting them excited about STEM, but what they've been teaching doesn't necessarily line up with the curriculum that you are covering. You're worried as an educator that you won't have time to cover everything you need to over the school year, and with that engineer taking up one class per month, what should you do? And again, this comes down to communication, like we will often say. Talk with the engineer about what you specifically would like them to cover. Chances are that they have thought of or can think of, or there are resources available for them to access that cover these topics that you're wanting them to talk about. And there are several real world applications as activities that they can walk through with your class. Look through the resources and activity ideas on our website, like mentioned before. And if you find something that you think would be interesting, that your students would love to participate in and learn about, see if your engineer would be interested in trying it out. And then lastly, email us, because we're always here to help, and we may be able to direct you to an activity that could work, or problem solve that with you.
So another scenario is your EIR is very excited to be part of the program and share their knowledge and experience with the students, but it is clear that it's their first time doing this sort of thing and they're struggling to engage and relate to students. What do you do? And this is something actually, when I was talking with a lot of our new volunteers, a lot of them are really worried about this. They're like, oh, I really like this idea, but I've never been in a classroom. I'm not a teacher. And so a lot of them, this is something new that they're trying out. And while they're very excited, they might not know the best ways to engage with your class. So something that you can do is suggest ways for them to engage with the students, because you know the students best. You're with them much more often than any engineer would be. So you might know what works best for your class and what doesn't work, and you can work with your engineer to help them gain the skills that they need to be a successful mentor. If there's something specific you think they can improve on, definitely point it out. Constructive criticism is necessary for the EIRs to improve and have the greatest impact on students. And like I said, most of them are so eager that they're really willing to learn and try new things and listen to what you have to say.
And finally, the last kind of question that we get asked a lot is, what if my teaching situation changes? You're halfway through the school year and you couldn't be happier with the program, but unfortunately you have to go on leave for personal reasons, or something in your teaching situation changes. What do you do? Let us know as soon as you can. We're here to help you, and we want to work through this with you. See if the teacher who's replacing you is interested in continuing to host your EIR on a monthly basis. If you have had a positive experience with them, often personal testimony can be such an important way to share the program and to get someone excited in continuing it. So sharing that with the person that's replacing you can be an excellent way to continue this program with your students. And then another way is to try to find another teacher at your school who is interested in the program, so that our EIR can stay in that school. Our EIRs love the program once they're in it, and often are saddened to sometimes hear that the teacher they are matched with has something that has come up and they're not able to continue. but the opportunity to stay at the same school and continue to work with kids is always appealing and always exciting for an engineer in this situation. All right, so that is the end of our formal presentation and the things that we wanted to cover today. So now we're going to have a time of discussion where you can ask us some questions about the program or anything to do with that. What did we not talk about? What else are you wondering? Is there any specific questions that we can answer that might have or pertain to the whole group? So feel free to ask questions.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
How long?
if
Sorry.
you do want to leave, I know some of you might have plans or commitments you need to run away to. So we will be sending out a survey to get some feedback on this webinar so that we can hopefully improve it in the future. So we'll be sending out an email for that if you do need to step away.
So Jennifer asks, how long typically would they spend in the class on their monthly visit?
So this is really up to you. So teachers will often say, oh, I have an hour block where someone can come in. Sometimes it's more. We tell our engineers to expect 1 to 2 hours, but you can really work with your volunteer to see what works with their schedule and what works with your schedule. I know lots of people said, oh, only an hour, that's not enough time. So if you have more than that available, the engineers are usually very excited for that. But if you have to keep it shorter, given your timetable constraints, they're usually very willing to work with that as well.
Mm. And along with that kind of time in the monthly visit, yeah, it really depends on the engineer, their work schedule, how often they can travel / commute to your school. But yeah, like Ali said, oftentimes they're very excited to do more if they're in the position to have that time. Awesome. Brittany asked, very excited to participate this year, and that's awesome to hear. We're glad that you're excited, and we always love having new schools, new teachers, new engineers in the program. Is the EIR meant to be partnered with only one class or multiple? So that's a good question, and that again, like we often say, depends on the engineer and depends on their time commitment. As you've noticed, our original partnership will be between a main teacher and the engineer. However, there are scenarios where there are multiple classes within the school that are interested in working with this engineer, or multiple classes that you teach that you think would be interested, depending on how your school is structured and kind of what level it's at. But we would suggest talking with your engineer and seeing whether they would be interested in spending more time working with you and participating with different classes, because oftentimes that is one of the things that our engineers actually request is, can I work with multiple classes? Can I make a bigger impact on the different students that I see?
Definitely, in that way, the program is very customizable. So if your school only has one EIR, but lots of teachers are interested, you can work with them. For the most part, we connect them with one main teacher, but it's very customizable for what your class and maybe your school needs.
Awesome. So Jennifer asking, if we need resources for an activity, does that come from school budget for purchases?
Yes, and I see Rebecca answered that one in the chat there. So there is a small budget that all the engineers are given to spend on consumables for the activities and all the materials they'll use. So there is a bit of a budget there, so it does not have to come all from your school budget. Of course, if you have resources available that they can use, you can work with them to let them know.
Yeah, and again, a very good question. If the partnership went well, can teachers and engineers work together again for the following year? And Rebecca is answering these questions in chat, as you can see, but yeah, we're excited to hear every year the partnerships that have gone great, and we see again and again engineers and teachers who have been matched together for years and years continue to have a good relationship and continue to work together. So, like Rebecca said, there is the ability to renew that matching, and at the end of year when we are getting feedback and preparing for the next school year, that is one of the things we ask our teachers and engineers: would you like to continue with the same match? Because that is something that we greatly encourage, and we love to see.
And when we're asking about that as well, we give you the opportunity, if you like the program but the partnership wasn't great, you can try out a different engineer. So you might have someone who has a different specialty and maybe you can work with them a bit better. So we give you the opportunity to stay involved and change things up a bit. Okay, so do you have intro materials, videos about engineering that we can use to share with our students as we prepare for the program? So Rebecca, do you have any specific videos,
Hi.
materials?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm going to talk instead of type this time. And hello, everyone. And thanks for being here today. So we have all kinds of resources available. If there's something specific you're looking for, Jennifer, just feel free to send me an email and I can maybe pull out a particular presentation that's well matched to what you're looking for. But if you want to kind of nose around that EIR.ca/resources section, we have our full program guide is like downloadable for free there. And then you can also find links that we recommend for other really great resources, like engineering resources. There's some really great sites that are set up that have things like presentations, and they're searchable and filterable by grade and time limits and subject. It's really great. So short answer is yes, and please, like I said, feel free to reach out to us for more details.
Okay, are there any other questions at all? It's looking like maybe not, so we'll move on to kind of the last little bit. And here are actually some of those resources we've mentioned. So How to Wear Your Engineering Hat is a great way for engineers and also teachers to look at how they can act like an engineer, and when they're messaging, really speak like an engineer and kind of channel that into what they're working. We also have a newsletter, and like we said, our website, the EIR.ca/resources, has a ton of information. And yes, Bianca, we will share the recording of this presentation as well as a PDF copy of the slides so that you can refer to them. So we also have a couple upcoming events that I'll just remind you of. So on July 29th, we have our diverse and inclusive messaging, and that's for all our teachers and our engineers to talk a little bit about how engineering can be diverse and how you can incorporate that into your messaging. And as well, on September 19th, we have our EIR program information orientation. So the links for those to register were in the email that you received a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and that is the end of our presentation. Again, if you have questions, concerns, comments, please let us know now or later. You can email us and we'll happily get back to you. And also a reminder that we will be sending out a response form in terms of how this webinar went. We'll be sending a survey and we would love to hear your feedback so that we can improve on what we're doing for the next webinars and for next year. Yeah, contact us on social media and follow our social medias if you would like to continue to hear more. about the program and what we're doing and the different stories that are coming out of it. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Matthew, can I add one thing about social media? We
Yeah,
love
absolutely.
it when the teachers take pictures of what's going on in their classroom and tag us at EIR program. We love to see what's going on in the classroom. So if you can do that, then that's much appreciated. We love getting that little window into your world.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have stories throughout the year that you want to share of how this program has gone well, the impact you've seen, that can include pictures, obviously, that we love to see. Please share that with us because it helps to give a first-person account of the impact that the EIR program gives into students and classrooms, and helps us to really see firsthand the engineering outreach that's going on.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Matthew. And thanks everyone for being here too. Welcome to the program. We look forward to connecting again soon.